Greetings, friends and countrymen. Welcome to Conspiracy Corner News. This is Bart Sibrel. Conspiracy Corner News briefly highlights the week's most significant and underreported news events throughout the world, focusing on special preparation for the difficult times ahead for all mankind. In this particular week, this is truly underreported news. Now, most of you have heard, I'm sure if you follow mainstream media or even alternative media, this shooting in Las Vegas, one of many in the past, and I'm sure many to come, of crazy people doing crazy things. The problem is it distracts from what is really going on in the world of greater significance. Now, here is a website that is called Alternative News, and let's just scroll through some of these stories, okay? Vegas shooter, Vegas shooter, Vegas shooter, Vegas shooter, Vegas shooter, Vegas shooter, Vegas shooter. Older posts. Okay, a woman is sent to prison for refusing to vaccinate her son. That's a good one. Iraq war, back to Vegas shooter, Vegas shooter, Vegas shooter, Vegas shooter, Vegas shooter, Vegas shooter, Vegas shooter. You see how even the mainstream media has affected the quote alternative media. We are buying into now what they are selling, and I don't think that's the right thing to be doing. I don't remember exactly when it was. I think it was 2007 in February. This person by the name of Anna Nicole Smith died from a drug overdose, which is a very sad thing. What I noticed at the time, though, was that this was the top story in the news every day for an entire month. One individual who used to be a Playboy model dropping dead from a drug overdose, and it was all the news talked about nonstop for an entire month. And it's like, well, what is Congress doing? What is the Senate doing? What's going on in Afghanistan and Iraq and all these other things? You see, I think there are things going on around the world and maybe in Congress, bills being passed, that the mainstream media, which is purchased a long time ago by the CIA for propaganda, they are trying to use misdirection and have us focus on these sensational stories like a celebrity, ODing, or a bunch of people being killed by a crazy person, when in fact there are many more significant things going on in the world. Here's one of the most important ones here, and this is the story that this article is talking about, which I will link to. Is it time to question the modern nation-state model of governance? Model of governance. And what they're talking about is what is going on in Catalonia, Spain, which it's basically a state of Spain, just like the United States has various states, Texas and California. Most countries, France and Spain and Germany, have their own little states as well. And in this particular case, Spain, a Western European country with the fourth largest economy in Western Europe, wants to have independence. And you can see it looks like practically every person in the city has turned out for this event. And what the Spanish government has done is they have made voting, which should be kind of a normal thing. They boast that they are a democracy. Spain is a, quote, democracy. And here's people exercising their right to vote, elderly people and younger people helping them out. Unfortunately, here's what happened when they voted. The Spanish police raided as many polling stations as they could, threw the ballot boxes in the garbage or burned them or whatever, basically making voting illegal in a democracy. Now, does that make sense to anybody? So, in the past week, this event, this voting occurred on a Sunday, October 1st, and I believe that was the exact same day as the Vegas shooting. Now, I believe with, certainly the CIA has the ability to, murder somebody, make it look like an overdose, as in the case of Anna Nicole Smith, and they have crazy people, who they're allegedly following, by the FBI, who are alleged terrorists, who they can, kind of provoke at will to do what they want to do on any particular day. And so here we have one of the greatest stories in the world, a country, part of a country vying for independence, and that country being, an ally of the United States, Western Europe, allegedly civilized and modern, and this is what they're doing. They are saying that voting in a democracy is illegal. They are saying that freedom and independence in a democracy is illegal. And so what a coincidence that this event happens the very same day, and for an entire week in the mainstream media, they did not report 1 second. Not 1 second of airtime on what's going on in Spain. And it's, to me, one of the most significant historical events so far in the 21st century. And here we have them shooting. Can you get this? They're shooting at people for voting. And this is not being reported in the news. And then here's a lady who looks to be a senior citizen. She's got gray hair, and she's been beaten by the police for voting in a country that claims to be a democracy. Here you have the local fire department standing in line to protect their citizens from the state police for voting. Now, I find that a little outrageous that this is not being reported in the news. Now, let's take a look at the, you could say, the legality of whether or not voting. The claim by the Spanish government is that it's an illegal vote. And I just watched commentators go on TV who have to be backed by the CIA, because they're saying, yeah, they basically, without saying it word for word, they said this lady deserves to be clubbed because she's breaking the law. Well, there are many laws around the world that are ungodly. For example, in Saudi Arabia, a woman is not allowed to drive. So if she's attempting to drive and she's beaten with a club until her skull cracks open and bleeds, right, is that her fault, or is it the government's fault? You see, I can't believe people are going on TV and saying that that the police acted appropriately by shooting and clubbing people for voting because the country, in its warped way of looking at things, said that voting is illegal or women driving is illegal. So I guess it's all right to beat women for driving in Saudi Arabia because they're breaking the law in that country. Let's go to the Declaration of Independence. We're supposed to be the example of the world, of a country for the first time in world history breaking away from a colonial power that we were a part of. It says, when in the course of human events it becomes necessary for one people to dissolve the political bands which have connected them with one another, and to assume among the powers of the earth the separate and equal station to which the laws of nature and of nature's God entitle them. A decent respect to the opinions of mankind requires that they should declare the cause which impel them to the separation. We hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal, that they are endowed by their Creator with certain inalienable rights, that among these are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness, that to secure these rights, governments are instituted among men, deriving their just powers from the consent of the governed, that whenever any form of government becomes destructive of these ends, it is the right of the people to alter or abolish it, and to institute new government, laying its foundation on such principles and organization, its powers in such a form as to them shall seem most likely to affect their safety and happiness. Now, do you see that? It says whenever any form of government, right here, whenever any form of government becomes destructive of these ends, it is the right of the people to alter or abolish it. It says that government is there, it's instituted by men deriving their just powers from the consent. So these people in Spain, just like us in America, we no longer wanted to be ruled by the British. They were becoming thugs, like shooting you and clubbing you for voting, right? And so we said we have the right to dissolve this marriage. Well, let's take a look at that. I'm sure all the people in Spain, their Catholicism, is all over that country. So I'm sure the leaders in Spain claim that they're Christians. Well, let's see what the Bible says about divorce. It says, but to the rest I say, this is in, I think it's in 1 Corinthians 7. Yeah, 1 Corinthians 7. And let's go down to verse 12. But to the rest I, not the Lord, say, if any brother has a wife who does not believe, and she is willing to live with him, let him not divorce her. And a woman who has a husband who does not believe, if he is willing to live with her, let her not divorce him. For the unbelieving husband is sanctified by the wife, and the unbelieving wife is sanctified by the husband. Otherwise your children would be unclean, but now they are holy. But, here it is, if the unbeliever departs, let him depart. A brother or sister is not under bondage in such a case, but God has called us to peace. So it says, if your partner in marriage wants to live with you, you should not divorce them. But if they want to leave, you are to let them do so. So this applies to the Spanish government and to the British government in the time of America. They want a divorce. According to the law of the Bible, which they claim to follow, they are entitled to a divorce. It doesn't matter what the reason is. As long as they no longer want to be a part of that union, it says they are supposed to let their departing partner go peaceably. And what they're doing in Spain is they are forcing them to remain married to a tyrant. It's like telling a woman in Saudi Arabia whose husband beats her over the head with a club to bleeding because she wants to drive that she's forced to stay married to him. And I cannot believe the Trump administration is taking the side of Spain in this. When the Soviets, our alleged enemy, when one of their countries wants to split from the Soviet Union, we're all like, oh yeah, go. We send troops over there to support their independence movement. But when it's one of the Western guys, one of our friends who wants to break away, then we don't allow that. It's complete hypocrisy. Here are other independent movements going on. Scotland, of course, has come very close to breaking away from Great Britain. And we also have Flanders in Belgium. And believe it or not, there's another part in Spain that wants to do it. I can't pronounce this correctly, but however you say that in Spanish, that region of Spain, and here it shows it on the map. Catalonia, I believe, is right here, this area here. And where else? Then we have Catalonia, we just mentioned that one. One in France, there's an area in France that wants to become its own nation. So I think it's time for that to be allowed. The way that governments have worked in the past is from the top down. And I say, well, why can't government work from the bottom up? If copper, a wire, electricity can flow from left to right, it can flow from right to left. Why not have the regional city-state have the supreme authority, and then the federal government have the less authority? Why does it have to be the way that it is? So the reason Trump is taking the side of the Spanish government, and the reason our media in the United States is not reporting for an entire week this very important worldwide event in Catalonia is simply because they are afraid that it will happen here. All these independence movements throughout history have sparked another one, and they've become kind of contagious, a snowball domino effect. And so this is why they're distracting us with this Las Vegas shooter. It's even distracted the alternative media, and the simple reason is because they are afraid that it will happen in the United States. That's the topic of this week. I hope you have found it inspiring. This has been Brother Bart's Conspiracy Corner News. But also remember, the more important issue is, are you prepared for eternity? If you like this episode, please tell your friends, share the link, give me a thumbs up in the YouTube section below, and thank you for your kind and generous support. Greetings, friends and countrymen. Welcome to Conspiracy Corner News. This is Bart Sibrel. Conspiracy Corner News briefly highlights the week's most significant and underreported news events throughout the world, focusing on special preparation for the difficult times ahead for all mankind. In this particular week, this is truly underreported news through some of these stories, okay? Vegas shooter, Vegas shooter, Vegas shooter, Vegas shooter, Vegas shooter, Vegas shooter, Vegas shooter. Older posts. Okay, a woman is sent to prison for refusing to vaccinate her son. That's a good one. I don't remember exactly when it was. I think it was 2007 in February. This person by the name of Anna Nicole Smith died from a drug overdose, which is a very sad thing. What I noticed at the time, though, was that this was the top story in the news every day for an entire month. One individual who used to be a Playboy model dropping dead from... Now, most of you have heard, I'm sure if you follow mainstream media or even alternative media, this shooting in Las Vegas, one of many in the past, and I'm sure many to come, of crazy people doing crazy things. The problem is it distracts from what is really going on in the world of greater significance. Now, here is a website that is called Alternative News, and let's just scroll through Iraq War back to Vegas shooter, Vegas shooter, Vegas shooter, Vegas shooter, Vegas shooter, Vegas shooter, Vegas shooter. You see how even the mainstream media has affected the quote alternative media. We are buying into now what they are selling, and I don't think that's the right thing to be doing.